the Little Qualicum River. Very close to its source at Cameron Lake. That bridge is always a lovely introduction to this hike. I'm heading out to the Cameron Lake Trestles. There are 4 of them above the lake. This scene was the start and end point for all 12 of my hikes to the Cameron Lake Railway Trestles between 2019 and March 2025. This informal parking area is alongside Highway 4 east of Cameron Lake. It's between 2 railway bridges. The McBay Creek Bridge, well, the highway calls it Lockwood Creek, well, that's at mile 12.3 on the railway, and the Little Qualicum River Bridge at mile 12.4. Back when the railway was operating, it used this bit of land to set on and set off maintenance equipment for the railway. That's why there was some wood between the rails, much like at a grade crossing. But that wood is now all rotted and chewed up, and some people parked right against the rails when they did their Wesley Ridge hikes. A quick note about time. In this series of videos, I refer to 3 different eras. First era is when trains were running on this railway, so before early 2002. The second era is when I was doing my hikes there, so between 2019 and March 2025, and this is the main focus of this video series. And the third era is the current evolving unknown post-fire reality, when the old routes of people hiking Wesley Ridge and me hiking the railway aren't possible and the area is unsafe. Back when freight trains were running and heading from the Nanaimo rail yard to the Port Alberni paper mill, they'd approach this area after passing the entrance to Little Qualicum Falls Provincial Park. It's mile 10.3 on the E&N Railway's Port Alberni Subdivision, and I'm heading westward. Soon the freight train would pass by milepost 11. Now, a December 2018 windstorm caused a huge tangle of windfall trees in the Cameron Lake and Little Qualicum Wind Tunnel area. And in early 2020, a logging contractor cleaned up this section of railway between the Little Qualicum Park Road and the McBay Creek Railway Bridge. And this video view is from April 2020, and you can hear my delight in the improved sight lines at the time. This is one of the few spots on the Port Alberni subdivision where I've been able to stand beside the rails, a little bit below them, and actually be on regular ground and not be like in the woods or on a cliff. This is like a normal railway. Getting back to the imagined freight train heading west at this location, soon they would pass milepost 12, and then they'd be alongside the Little Qualicum River. After rounding a curve, McBay Creek Bridge and nearby Highway 4 at that later parking area would come into view. And then it was time for the Little Qualicum River Railway Bridge at mile 12.4. Always fun walking across this simple bridge.
Walking across this railway bridge over the little Qualicum River was always at both the start and end of my hikes to the Cameron Lake Trestles. I would often start at dawn or earlier, and so I have many views with my headlamp illuminating the bridge ties in front of me. Other times I would have daylight at the start. It all depended when I wanted to be somewhere by sunrise. One time I even had snow.
Lovely.
At the end of my hike, coming back across the bridge, the lighting would be different, late afternoon usually. In my years of hiking here, the first main landmark westbound after crossing the river bridge was this windfall tree hanging over the tracks. It served as a marker for the Wesley Ridge hiking trail. Here are a few views from April 2019 looking eastward. The lower tree in the foreground eventually got cleared, but the larger windfall remained there until at least spring 2025. It never got cleared by anyone. Now, it might have been insignificant and easy to walk underneath, but it is the first indicator of a continuing problem of unchecked obstacles. This is a good time to mention the impact of the 2025 Wesley Ridge wildfire, which includes the loss of some of the railway trestles above the lake. My nuanced opinion is that the trestles' fate was actually lost around 9 years before this recent fire, after 2016 or so. 2016 was roughly when authorized maintenance access by volunteer groups was ended, and so the obstacles from nature's constant pushback started to accumulate unchecked again. In my view of the history, the June 2016 Narcoa Speeder Tour, as the last authorized use of that part of the Port Alberni subdivision, seems to mark the end of that era when the railway operator was able to access the remote sections of the railway. Eventually, the section of railway above Cameron Lake, roughly between mileposts 13 and 18, which includes the 4 Lakeview trestles and 2 other trestles west of the lake, well, this section of the railway was isolated at both ends by unchecked accumulated physical obstacles on the railway, obstacles that would include the deteriorated trestles themselves. The inaccessibility of this section of railway then allowed further obstacles to build up and add to the list of unresolved barriers, a compounding problem with no end. Back to the hike westbound. The next landmark was the switch stand for the east end of the 1,337-foot Cameron Lake siding. I especially liked seeing the switch stand's reflective marker whenever I would arrive before dawn.
And we're coming into the open area by what used to be the Cameron Lake Station and Chalet, and now is a private cabin area.
What I'm really going to miss about hiking here is the peaceful and eerie quiet light just before dawn.
The lake is through there. The old cars here at the siding, kind of looking ghostly. Up ahead there's a couple old cars, looks to be a water car and a few other things, and the story I've heard is just that they were privately owned and left there. I'm not sure who, but they're always here. Here's the station name sign for Cameron Lake. I like it when railway signage endures. The siding continues into the woods. I'll follow the main line. I've been coming to this area since the spring of 2019, quite frequently in the first few years as I enjoyed exploring the old trestles that are up ahead, but less frequently in recent years. mainly because of the problem broom and the ticks that they hold in the summertime. So I'm expecting there to have been changes, some windfalls, rockfall, and a continued deterioration of the trestle decks, and also a continued encroachment of the vegetation, always pushing back. That's why I do these hikes. I love to see how nature pushes back and things change over time.
Thanks for watching this episode in my Cameron Lake Trestles series. I'm producing a series of YouTube videos to share my photo and video memories of the Cameron Lake Railway Trestles from my various visits between 2019 and 2025. Episode 1 has already been uploaded to my channel, and that's where I go through the context, the history, and most importantly, the wildfire in summer 2025 and the status of the trestles.
Yeah, I hate the broom. Hey Mike, why don't you come here in the summertime? Well, do you like picking ticks out of your armpits and crotch? I'm still having no problems complying with the 10-mile-an-hour slow order. I'm more like a 2-mile-an-hour walker on the railway.